Hello everyone, today I will continue to practice reading English. The script episode 5 dealing with mistake in Office English series of BBC Learning English channel on YouTube. Okay, let's start right now. What happens when something goes wrong at work? What do we say? Sometimes there'll be a message from somebody that says, "Hi," and I almost think, "Oh no, what's coming? What have I done?" Is that guilty feeling that it may be left over from being told off at school or something like that. So I think, you just have to accept that things can't be perfect all the time. And it's okay to make mistakes, just as long as you learn from them. In this episode of Office English, we'll talk about the language we can use when mistakes happen at work. Welcome to Office English from BBC Learning English. In this podcast, we help you with business English for difficult situations. I'm Phil and I'm Pippa. And today we are talking about mistakes at work. We try to avoid them, but sometimes mistakes happen. We've already heard from colleagues at the BBC that finding the language to deal with mistakes is complicated. But what about you, Phil? What do you think? No, I think it can be complicated. Whenever you are talking about mistakes, you are dealing with how people feel, and often you are dealing with how you feel yourself. Yes, I get really stressed if I make a mistake at work, and that can make talking about it difficult. You are also sometimes worried about making a mistake. You might feel like you will be blamed or that it will be bad for your career. So I think it's a really stressful time, and so it's difficult to know what to say. Yes, and in this episode, we are going to talk through language for admitting you made a mistake, apologizing, and fixing the problem. Let's start with owning up to a mistake or telling somebody something has gone wrong. Do you have any suggestion for that, Phil? Okay, so here's a phrase. There's an issue I need to draw your attention to. What do you think about that one? Yes, I think that's a really good idea. So it's good to be clear that there's a problem. So saying there's an issue I need to draw your attention to straight away. We know there's a problem. So if you were saying that to your boss, they know there's a problem, and you being really clear about it. And I think it's quite interesting that we're focusing on the issue, not at this point anyway, not who did it or why they did it or anything. He's saying, look, here's the problem. Let's sort it out. Yeah, because if you need to fix a problem, you can worry later about how that happened, what went wrong. Just saying there's a problem, we need to sort it out, is probably the best way to start. Any other phrases, Phil? Okay, we've got this one. I've realized that my team make an error in the report. I like that because it's quite factual. We know immediately what the problem is. So you explained the problem quite clearly. That's an error in the report. There is a bit of blame going on here. So is my team make an error, but we've not saying someone specifically. We didn't say, oh, I realized that if you make a mistake on this, it's just somebody in a team, something's gone wrong. I guess ideally you also be thinking about how you can make things better. So we've got this one. You could say something like, I've accidentally sent the email out early, but I have a plan to fix the problem. Yeah, so if you worry about looking bad to your boss, if you make a mistake, maybe if you have time, if you were able to think of a solution straight away, you can go to your boss with the solution rather than just the problem. So I've made this mistake, but I already know what we can do to sort it out. It's probably a good way of thinking about it, especially if you know it's just you that make the mistake, and it's a simple thing, right? So we have some phrases for when we notice a mistake and need to admit that we made a mistake. But what about if someone else notices? So this might happen, say if you work with customers or clients and they notice a mistake or a problem, so we might need to start by apologizing. You could say something like, I'm really sorry about that, let me investigate the problem and get to the bottom of how that happened, so that doesn't happen again. That's really good for clients and customers. There's a lovely phrases in there. Get to the bottom of something. If you get to the bottom of something, it means you kind of understand why it happens. You're looking deep down into the bottom of the problem and working out what made it happen. Yeah, and that's a good way to apologize as well. So not only are you saying sorry, you're saying I need to work out what's gone wrong here, and I'm going to shut it out for you. Is reassuring for a client, for a customer, or a colleague. Another thing we might want to think about when we are apologizing is trying not to say if. So don't say I'm sorry if you are upset, because that may make the other person think that you don't take their complaint seriously. Instead, you could say, I'm sorry that you are upset by this mistake. I'm sorry that you are upset, instead of I'm sorry if you are upset. I mean, if someone's talking to you about the problem, is probably quite clear that they are upset. You say saying I'm sorry if you are upset. Yeah, I don't think it would help the situation. It's suggesting that you kind of are saying I don't think you should be upset, or something like that, or it leaves that door open. And I think that's probably a dangerous place to go. Yeah, when someone's complaining, they usually just feel like they want somebody to listen to them and somebody to say that they've heard their complaint, that they understand why they're upset or why there's a problem. So trying to kind of say if and get out kind of a meeting, blame, or a problem probably won't help the situation if someone upset or angry. Okay, so we've acknowledged our mistake, we apologized if we need to. Now we might need to think about fixing the mistake. What phrase could we use here, Phil? Okay, people will often talk about offering assurances, and that means you showing that you will stop the same thing from happening again. You could do that by saying, rest assured, we taking steps to prevent mistakes like these occurring again. And using this rest assured is like saying, be certain, we've taken this seriously. Yeah, it's a little bit like our apology when we say about getting to the bottom of a problem. This would be maybe the next thing you would say to the client. Once you've actually got to the bottom of it, you can say rest assured. So it's really reassuring to somebody who might have a problem with your company. Okay, and then for customers or clients, you could give them an offer or a discount to make up for the mistake if you've got the authority to do that. So, can I offer you a discount on future orders to make up for this inconvenience? In that classic offer structure there, can I offer you, can I give you? Yeah, people generally feel a lot better if they feel like they've got something out of it. As you say, you need to be sure that you are authorized, that you are allowed to offer a discount, but that might just make up for it. And sometimes apologizing is enough. Sometimes the mistake is just an honest mistake. It's just a small thing. And you don't need to do a huge investigation to get to the bottom of what went wrong. And you don't need to be offered a discount. It will depend on how big the mistake is, I would say, few. What things do you think are important to include in an apology? I think you need to be really genuine. So you need to show that you understand why the person is annoyed or upset, explaining potentially what the problem was. So it might just be a computer problem or an error that's really outside of your control. So if you explain that, people can be more reasonable with you about why some things gone wrong, but yeah, you really just want to be really genuine and don't deny that there's a problem if you can, because usually that makes things worse later down the line. So dealing with the mistakes are stressful, but using clear language helps us sort out the mess. Let's listen to our BBC colleagues again. Sometimes there'll be a message from somebody that says, hi, now small thing, or no, what's coming, what's have I done. So I think, you just have to accept that things can't be perfect on a time, and it's okay to make a mistake, just as long as you learn from them. So Andrew said there that learning from mistakes is important, as well as showing that you've learned. So showing somebody, maybe your boss, that you took feedback, that you realize there was a mistake and you make sure it won't happen again. So how could we do that for you? Well, quite often it might be explaining why the mistake happened, and then just say how we're going to do things differently in the future to make sure that doesn't happen. These of course depend on what the mistake was. It might be there was something you didn't know. It might be that there was something you need to find out, or you hadn't been told on. All of these things could be there, but finding the root of it and showing that you understand the root of it is important, I think, and that helps stop it happen again. Yeah, and some companies will do something called a debrief, which is basically organizing a formal meeting to talk about what went wrong, to come up with an action plan to stop it happening again. Sometimes people do that even if something hasn't gone wrong. So say you have a big project or an event at work, people may have a debrief just to talk about how could we make that better. So if you always showing that you can learn, that you can make things better, that you can do the same thing again but even better, even if you haven't make a mistake, that's always a good thing to do. That is for this episode of Office English. Next time we'll be heading to a work event and working on small talk and networking. In the meantime, you can find more activity to help you with your English at work. It's BB's Learning English. Bye for now. Bye. That's done for episode 5. Thank you so much for your watching my video today. And how do you feel about my reading session today? Let's give your contribution, your feeling. Let's comment below to help me correct myself better and better in the future. And don't forget to subscribe my channel to follow my progress of studying English. Thank you so much for watching my video today. Thank you. Bye bye.